Good evening. My name is Matt Bell. It's such a pleasure to welcome you all here. I'm the director of the Worldbuilding Initiative here at ASU. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our third event of the spring 2024 semester, our first Worldbuilding Student Showcase. Tonight we'll hear from 10 ASU students, both here on our Tempe campus and from ASU Online, presenting a variety of works that engage creatively with the future, imagined worlds, or other ways of imagining otherwise. I've been teaching a class on world building for science fiction and fantasy for the last 4 or 5 years here at ASU. Many of the students who are here tonight were in versions of that, but not everyone, of course. It's been a really exciting thing to get to see all the different ways that students are engaging with thinking about the world we live in, the worlds we might live in, and of course, just completely invented places. I think the ASU students I've worked with are, I'll just say like the best students I've worked with any school I taught at. And I feel really lucky to get to be here amidst all of your, I almost said innovation just because we're at ASU, but imagination. And it's really a pleasure to get to share that work with people in the room, people online, and to get to hear from you today. Before we begin, I just want to thank, as always, our partners at ASU, which include the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, the Department of English, the Virginia G. Piper Center for Creative Writing, who is hosting us today, the Lincoln Center for Applied Ethics, where the World Building Initiative is housed. Thanks especially to Karina Fitzgerald and Liza Kent, my partners at the initiative, who do so much to make these events possible, as well as the Piper Center staff hosting us tonight. So you have an idea how the format of the night is going to go. Each of our presenters will read or speak for approximately 5 minutes. A time limit I'll do my best to enforce to keep us moving along. We'll proceed in alphabetical order after our first reader, who has to run to class after they present. So I'll come up and introduce each person so we you'll know when you're up. But if you know your own last name, you'll know when you're coming. Our first presenter tonight, our first world builder tonight is Kruger. Please give a big round of applause.
Hi, thank you. I'll just get started right away. Illithilp knew from the moment that he calculated it that this outcome was possible, if not inevitable. That didn't make it any easier to cut off his people from the rest of the galaxy. As he stood on the bridge, gazing out at the structure ahead, a strong sense of guilt was overwhelming him. None of his citizens knew what he and the military were about to do. That would cause an unnecessary panic, perhaps even a mass insurrection. It was decided by himself and the others in leadership positions that a hard break was best. Though it did take a lot of convincing by him, something he knew was the right call, yet he couldn't help but regret. Regret. Guilt. In some of the old Hollow experiences, it was said that synthetic beings lacked these emotions, yet Illithilp felt them deeply. He once asked one of the head engineers about the decision, and he remembered what she said perfectly. Well, you're alive. Shouldn't you be able to feel like it? He remembered laughing and agreeing, yet now, burdened with the weight of what he must do, part of him doubted that it was the right call. Admiral Yulnil entered the bridge, the old yet spry Kalanian who had been assigned to the L Cluster sector. The L Cluster being a small group of stars that existed far outside the galaxy and its interconnected hyperlanes, a place only accessible through the L Gate, the very thing they were set to destroy. The Admiral's wrinkly, reptilian face formed a grim expression, yet like Illithilp, his confidence did not waver. Neither of them doubted what they needed to do, but they both knew that the burden would be impossible to shoulder. The bridge had been cleared per Yulnil's orders, so the two of them could talk in private. Greetings, Governor. Admiral, Illithilp nodded, his synthesized tone somber. His face lacked any kind of face, as it were. Yet the two of them had known each other long enough to get over that hurdle. If there was anyone who could help them through this, it was Yulnil. The weapons officers have calculated the exact payload we need, Yulnil said, letting out a long, gruff sigh. 679 neutron bombs, coupled with the perdition beam from the Resolute 13, should be enough to permanently disable it. I see. The nanite composition won't be an issue? No. The force should be enough to disable them and prevent any sort of self-repair protocol from activating. And we'll have no way to fix it? No. It's beyond our understanding of gateway technology. Maybe in a few centuries we might be able to figure it out. The prospect hung in the air. Centuries, a future neither of them would live to see. A future created by them. Could their people even survive that long? 40 habitats spread across 9 star systems with one section of a ring world and no habitable worlds in sight. Already cramped with no room for expansion. What they were about to do might doom every person in the colony. The very same people who had come to this place seeking protection. Yet he knew the alternative was unthinkable. If what they were fleeing from came here, it would be a certain permanent end for all of their civilizations. A great scourge had torn its way across the galaxy, an extra-dimensional force of psychic origin known as the Unbidden. They are vicious, and as far as anyone could tell, barely conscious, only seeking to feed on the life force of others, seeing them only as food. All of the great interstellar nations of the galaxy joined forces, their shipyards producing waves of new vessels, the expert coordination of genetically modified soldiers and psychic warriors alike, their massive industries oriented only towards supporting the effort to defeat them, and even the creation of warships as large as cities. None of it mattered, and system after system fell. Entire planets became refugees overnight, at least those that survived. The L cluster offered a refuge for the desperate masses looking for safety. It was discovered by the Interstellar Kalon Syndicate, and they claimed it as their territory. They discovered that it was home to a powerful civilization which had developed nanites to aid in their grand designs, from architecture to gateway technology. However, something caused them to fail, turning all of their worlds into uninhabitable wastelands and leaving the connected L-gates offline. Something the Kalani were eventually able to amend, leading them to attempt to use the space to expand their civilization through artificial living spaces. At the time, it seemed like the perfect solution. As planet after planet was left in ruins, those that survived could populate the newly built habitats and later the first finished section of the ring world. The Interstellar Kalon Syndicate was dedicated to providing a utopia to everyone who lived there, and so there was no better place for the refugees of these various nations. It was always going to be a temporary measure. Once they defeated the Unbidden, they could all go back home, do what they can to rebuild. Yet through the nearly 4 years since this conflict started, no one, besides those at the highest levels of government, accounted for what might happen if they lost. Illithope, Yulnil said, his hand on Illithope's cold metallic shoulder. Sorry, Admiral. Illithope shook his head and tried to get his mind back on track. They were just waiting for confirmation from the fleet on the other side, the Takver Navy cluster. He had never met its admiral in person. Their only conversation had been over the holo channels to discuss the plans with the premier herself. The premier, a colony named Val El, was the one who approached him with the proposal. It was after a horrific massacre where the Genly, Rokanen, and Selvar Navy clusters came back with barely 20 ships between them. Fleets of hundreds of ships, each reduced to almost nothing. A critical blow which forced the lines back even further. So close, in fact, that the black hole system containing the galaxy-side L-gate was now at risk.
Thank you so much, Kruger. I feel like it's a good sign when we start out at like maximum galactic scale, right? You know, I know you have to go, but thank you so much. Our second presenter for the night, our second world builder, will be Maya Badman. We can clap and go out there.
Thank you all for being here, especially our family, friends, and faculty. My name is Maya, and this is a chapter excerpt from my novel titled Women at War. Please heed to the content warnings of indecent language, allusion to rape, and explicit mortuary practices. The watch on my wrist beeps twice. My right arm freezes mid-extraction. It's too late to take off my gloves and silence the nuisance of a tracker. I've already unclothed the patient, including the removal of her own watch, silent, flashing red once it stopped detecting a heartbeat. When I resume, I ignore the second set of beeps that indicate my heart rate increasing. Extractions don't usually surprise me, but this one does. Straight from the patient's vaginal canal, a long glass tube reminiscent of an upside-down tampon applicator, smooth on the outside, curved on the top with one opening, faces me. Instead of soft cotton inside, there are sharp, handcrafted glass needles fit in 10 neat rows, just small enough to allow entrance, but partial to the backwards curve of an eel's rear hook teeth, the tube prohibits exit. There's dried blood inching along the inner opening of the tool. My throat pinches, and I focus on keeping my voice steady. Oh, you strong woman. Masked but ungloved, Dad walks into the prep room. He watches as I place the tool in the bag for the patient's family to collect, if she has anyone left. Elizabeth, he wheezes, his one lung getting worse every day. If he had to wear a watch like women do, it would be beeping every 5 seconds. His next words make my watch beep. For what cause, I can't keep track. We only take calls, phone calls from now on. The front shop, he stops, catching his breath and staring at the tile. Stays closed, no more entrance. What, Dad, why? I place down my extraction tools and unglove myself. Is your shirt ripped? What happened? Forcing him to sit in the corner of the room, I finally silence my watch. From heart rate to hormones to unusual location detected, it beeps all the time. Dad stands in the next minute, hugging me. Something we don't do in the prep room, or often. Just promise me you'll be safe. Always, okay, Dad? I'm fine. No, please tell me what's going on. I pull away and fix his skewed glasses, once more pointing out his ripped shirt collar with my gaze. You're scaring me, I say, tacking a laugh on at the end, but it's humorless because it's true. He finally takes a seat. These two men came in, and I've never been so sickened at a request. They tried to request. He shakes his head over and over. I want to grab his shoulders and tell him to spit it out. The glint of fluorescent light catching on glass reflects in my eye. The extraction, an odd request. I piece it together. They wanted her body taxidermied, didn't they? To keep her. My stomach roils with my lunch. Dad leans back in his chair, grimacing only to take off his glasses and scrub his eyes. When he looks back up at me, the weight of being a father to a girl is on his shoulders. Not all of her, he replies. My mouth pops open. I'm at a loss for words. That's sick. We should call, I don't know, police or someone else based on the news recently? Domestic services? I ramble in my discomfort. The men left. I have no information on them. The most we can do, and this is pertinent to your safety, Elizabeth, is only take embalming requests over the phone. Dad chuffs out his words, breathless. I place a hand on his shoulder, nodding. The metal storage slots for bodies are on the far wall. I look at it, knowing we are near capacity at our little pop and daughter shop until their bodies are claimed. It's all women now. What? Dad asks, looking at me instead of the storage wall. Every body we've received in the past 6 months, with the exception of Mr. Parched, they've all been women. Though Mr. Parched was picked up for funeral services within 2 weeks, the rest are buried at some point in unmarked plots when they can no longer stay here. With his attention now on the units holding bodies, he points to the bottom row. Those women, you've probably noticed, who needed immediate preservation, it wasn't because they were here long. They died, and it took the men, their families, too long to bring them in. They stunk, already rotting, but pardon me, daughter, but their vaginas were all weeping. Those men, just now, he points to the doorway that leads to the entrance of our morgue, wanted the same thing. His breath hitches in his weak lung. He swipes under his glasses. If your mother had been treated like this, she wasn't, Dad. Our friend Tony embalmed her, and now she's safe with us in her urn. Dad stands. But I'm scared for you. I've been hearing rumblings of a safe place run by the government. I scoff. What better interest does the government have than the men out there? I air quote my words, but am pacing nonetheless. News says the female population is declining. Men to women are 70 to 30. Nothing would be different if we went to the government. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maya. This is a weird literary opinion, but I think we're in entering a golden era of body horror, and I think you're going to be just fine as part of it. So we're glad to have you. Our next presenter, our next world builder is Michelle Conde. I think it's supposed to be online, but maybe isn't yet. Maybe she's on the other Zoom link. We'll try to find her and we'll move on to the next person. We'll come back. Our next world builder then is Christopher Cleveland. Yes, come on up. Yeah.
Hello, bro. It's my first time doing something like this. It's very fun for me. Let me welcome you to the world of supercell. It's not fun. This is a piece I wrote while a bit sleep deprived that shows how much anxiety an adventurer in this world may experience while on the path. He's not having a good time. See? Okay. Working my way down the vaguely identifiable street, I gripped my compass tightly. I understood how disastrous it'd be if I lost the equipment that the stable settlers provided. Without it, I'd be a lone captain trapped within an oceanic void, or a spaceman in a sky with no stars. I needed to make it before the next shift period, otherwise this effort was for nothing. A steady pace is necessary. My intense focus dulled some sentences and heightened others. The environment conspired against me every few meters. One bad step can cost me valuable seconds or minutes, depending on the injury. I had, at best, about 73.5 minutes. I should consider myself lucky. If I was granted just an hour or less, this check would have required perfection. Yet, now I could afford a detour. Hearing a rupture-like sound not too far left of me, particularly unexpected silence, switched my focus to determine its source. Should I have kept my pace? I wasn't in the mood for any more gambling than was necessary. The sound growing louder and louder with each repetition. I knew that this wasn't a false alarm. As the source moved closer to me, I moved low to the ground and took what was needed out of my pack and my holster. While I'm glad I was prepared, I struggled to forget about the hourglass in my head. I had to clear this obstacle before clearing the next. As it turns out, this was also the approach taken by the source. I was on standby for a minute, after which the sound moved away. Taking this opportunity to get a proper look, I saw that the source was an agent of the AST. It's not every day I see one of them, yet I can't spend a single moment in a settlement without their propaganda asking for my attention. Join the Alliance of Super Celtian Trailblazers, a path to the center together, is ink that can't be washed out of my eyes or ears at this point. Yes, I've tried to reach the center, the eye of the storm. Whether death or paradise, we all want a break from Supercell. Anyone I've had by my side has only been dealt the former hand. I decided this agent deserved that hand. With a directed motion from their wrist, they moved the debris that was in their way. Without fault, if there is a vehicle or a tree or a chunk of asphalt before them, it was moved aside by the time they would reach it. Creating their own path let them move at a much faster rate than even the luckiest stretches of my own track allowed me to. Making up for lost time required the tech they had. This idea led me onto the freshly made path, keeping a distance away from my new target. As soon as I began tailing them, I took a glance at my compass to see how much progress I still needed to reach my old target. I wasn't getting any closer, and the seconds where my attention was deviated were enough for the agent to gain an advantage. However, due to their capability, it seemed that they could approach me any of the seconds before. They chose the opportunity to startle me the most. They were close enough that I would feel their breath if not for the mask covering most of their face. I blinked, then they were back on their path, deciding to hasten their pace after snatching the compass right out of my hand. I sprinted forward. After a few minutes and a few maddening turns, we reached a dense, cloudy wall, the wall separating the quantum region from the mist. Instead of excavating through the barrier, they opted to just phase through. I gambled, I lost, and now I'm a sore loser without the means of a comeback.
I would never guess that was your first time doing that. Your first time doing that. It was really great. Chris was in one of my world building classes. And the first thing we do in that class is we make like a map of the world before anyone's written in it. So you sort of have this like, they don't even know what's in it yet when they write their maps. I remember walking around looking at Chris' map and sort of like, what happens here? He's like, oh, bad stuff. Like, what happens here? It's like, different bad stuff, you know? So it was good. We got into one of the interstitials between the bad things. Our next world builder today is Joseph Davis. Please.
Quick question. Should I treat you like humans or people in the setting?
People in the setting.
Just let me know where I can start. Start.
Go ahead.
Hi there. Thank you for coming in today. I know my time is short, so I'll try to keep this brief. My name is Professor Davis, and I work for the University of Ascension, where we are the people that force the stars. And so for today's presentation, I want to talk to you about a few courses. I want to talk to you about the Mark of Humanity, as well as just a few things that really make our university stand out. So starting with our founding. We were founded in 1269 during the century of ascendancy, or the age of ascendancy, depending on who you ask. And during this time period, we had a variety of different species and subspecies come together in order to bring together the galaxy's best and brightest scholars, soldiers, as well as architectural people, in order to bring about a new age of discoveries, in order to increase our understanding of the galaxy and the world at large. And over there, you can see Corby. He's our university's mascot. He's pretty cute. So for our next point, we will go over to the left, and we will talk about one of our courses, which is ACM 141. So this course is about the depictions of of humans and, sorry, it's about the depictions of aliens within human media and how we understand them. So during this course, during this 2-week course, we like to understand how we have been represented by humans in all types of media, whether it be the Asari from Mass Effect, be the aliens in Aliens, or even those weird little chicken thingies in Embassy Town. We like to understand how humans see us and represent us, as well as what those literary themes they like to talk about us are, as well as how we've represented them in different transmedia, as well as comparing and contrasting and understanding what we can learn from both. And so for our next slide, we will go to the left and we will talk about our religious course, our religious 358 course. So this course is about Forgism and the fall of Apocrypha. So before there was the Thespian galaxy, before there was the Milky Way galaxy, before there was any kind of galaxy, there was Apocrypha. And all species here were unique and all species were equal as a part of the web of compromises or the web of promises, depending on who you ask. Scholars are still pending. However, this promise that all life was created equally and all life will remain equal was broken when the forger decided to create humans. Bit of controversial opinion, but I can't say I like humans. So this course will explore how humans have affected the web of promises, what led to the destruction of Apocrypha, as well as what led to the rise of the devil, or in our terms, what led to the fall of the red dragon, as well as figuring out how humans have been separated into the Milky Way galaxy and how we've been left here in the Thespian galaxy for our own understanding. So for our next course, which is be the main course that every student will take, we have the HCM 140 course, which is the Understanding the Mark of Humanity event. So in this event, we will be going over why we have species like the Aldrum, which are more bird-like species, as well as species like the Rykor, that look like, well, they look like that guy right there. And then you have a normal-looking human right there. And we're going to be discussing why they look like humans and on the outside, despite not looking like humans on the inside. So in this course, we're going over Canis Opus. His real name's been lost to time and how he was a human boo. So for those who don't know what a human boo is, it's someone that's very associated with being obsessed with human culture. That includes things like Friends, Family Guy, and might I even say it, Grey's Anatomy. He was a really interesting individual. And so we're going to discuss why he believed that in order for us to be appreciated within the Forger's light, we needed to look like humans, as well as the war that led to that, how the Alcarans had to deal with the Typhon from devouring the galaxy, as well as many other interesting tidbits. And lastly, the last course I want to talk to you, I know I'm running short on time, is our Criminal Justice 358 course. So this course is our Dragon's Dust course. This course is going to discuss how one drug, a very small drug called Dragon's Dust, that was created 162 years ago, turned from a small drug into a galaxy-ravaging drug that ended up ravaging the entire galaxy, as well as the players that made the drug, the components that went into making the drug, as well as the entire empire that rose due to the drug in order to combat it, how it led to a second galactic civil war, as well as how it led to the Unifiers and the rise of Melanchthon Thuru, who is now been recognized as the leader of the Unifiers and the Golden Goddess. We have a course on that, but unfortunately we couldn't fit it within today's course. And so we'd like to thank you guys for listening to my presentation, and I hope you have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Also, I want you to come make all of my PowerPoints. That was like the most ornate PowerPoint I have ever seen. And I also think this is a good time for me to announce my resignation from ASU. I'm going to go work at the University of Ascendancy. Feel it's more in line with my particular skill set. It'd be really great. Our next world builder tonight is Angelina Mann.
Hello. Like he said, my name is Angelina, and today I will be presenting 4 poems imagining a future apocalyptic world inspired by the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Together, they form the Apocalyptique poems. Famine, emptiness, a hollowness like the inside of a can that once held ancient spongy beans scraped clean by questing rough-hewn utensils and stained with the blood of desperate fingers cut on the ragged edges where a lid long lost resided that groped for the smallest morsel, doomed only to find a smooth, cleaned-out interior and emptiness. War. Silence. A stillness like a world encased in ash with shards of glass, reflecting faintly the smoke-obscured sun, highlighting the scratched plastic eye of a play-pretend baby, abandoned, glinting off of shell casings, harmless now, but holding the agonizing memories of when sharp staccato strafing sank the people to their knees, tore the air asunder, and birthed this screaming silence. Plague. Rasping. A ground-up voice like the sound of your grandfather when he tells you stories, when he promises he'll quit smoking. A voice that belongs to the old, gifted, excruciatingly, reluctantly to the young, to use to sing songs of blood and pus, of soaked scarlet leaves and white mud-streaked clouds. Songs that echo against sterilized tile walls in a wraith's ululating call to creep up the spines, to invade the lungs of the hopelessly hopeful of the sticky plastic chairs, waiting for an usher dressed in white to escort them to their fate, while their lungs fill and expand and empty and deflate, and the air rushes forth from between their cracked and desiccated lips, rasping. Death. Dry. Like the sensation of a block of clay left out too long in the glare of the sun, that grates against the brush of a fingertip and judders up the arm, past crunched joints to the brittle teeth that would clench tightly against each other if lightning still coursed through threads of nerves that once controlled the limbs of this emaciated marionette that now bakes and bleaches, isolated, barren, dry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angelina. Really nice to have a poet in here to also, world build in that way too. And I really appreciate it. And as a big fan of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, really great work. I mean, I'm not a fan of their work, but like of them as an idea, our next three presenters are all going to be joining us from online. So we'll sort of move in that direction for a minute. Our next world builder is Jennifer Morgan.
Hi. Can you guys see me?
We can hear you, but not see you.
Oh no. It won't let me do it.
Try now.
Okay.
There you go.
Hey.
Yay.
All right. Hi, I'm Jenny. I'm joining from Washington State. Looks like it's much nicer there than it is here. This is a story that I wrote for Professor Cruiser's English 394. We had to write a short story in the style of Stephen King in 500 words. So here's my attempt. God damn it, Janine Crane raged, tripping over a gnarled cedar root that had quietly snuck its way onto the trail years ago. What am I even doing up here? What's the point of this, she thought to herself, bruised ass planted unceremoniously to the forest floor among a riot of sword fern and huckleberry. She cursed the streaks of red developing like a Polaroid on her now gashed knee. The woods were moody on that oppressive August day. Janine came looking for a black bear. Dan, an old friend, knowing her interest in daring large carnivores of the Pacific Northwest to commune with her, had stumbled upon a den while on his own follies. He sent a screenshot of the approximate place, wished her luck, and told her not to end up revenanted like Leo. Janine did not know why, but since childhood she stalked woodlands in pursuit of catching glimpses of wild things, powerful things, spectral things. She had an uncanny ability to manifest and coax creatures great and small, majestic and pathetic, out of emptiness. She'd spent her youth shuttling between Alaska and Oregon, the byproduct of a nasty divorce. Her father couldn't decide which petite brunette with light eyes he'd like best, eventually killing him. Another story, another day. Grizzly bears, a lone wolf, elk, moose, the most fearsome creature to walk the earth if you'd ask Janine. Cougars, coyotes, great horned owls, a pot of belugas, and the Turnagain arm racing the boar tide. Visages of unnamed and unknowable things. Maybe goblins? She wasn't scared. She knew inherently she was protected somehow. Despite of all of Janine's encounters, the one she wanted most was a black bear. Common as they were, this creature evaded her. Why so, with so much more sophisticated and exciting fauna she had and yet to have met? She knew that the bear would continue eluding her, as if she wasn't spiritually ready for the encounter. I don't deserve it, she admitted, beginning to cry, repugnant sounds echoing off the trees. I'm no fucking beast bewitcher. People have tracked animals from time immemorial. It's not bullshit magic. A grotesquely plump carpenter ant made his way across her swollen ankle. She calmed herself and thought, more like a wizard of preventable injuries. But Janine, but Janine was wrong. She was a spellcaster. For what purpose and provenance still to be revealed? She gathered herself, her disturbed ankle and bleeding knee unsteady as a squirrel chittered at her. "Well, fuck off, asshole," she said, resenting the thing. The squirrel laughed in the way a squirrel does, pirouetting back into the undergrowth. She bent down to tie her shoe. An impromptu gust of summer wind curled through the trees. Nature's air conditioning, she mused. Wiping her tears, she noticed some concealed force moving the bracken in a lunatic zigzag in front of her. Twig snapping, a high alarm cry from some small entity. Tracing the track of moving vegetation ahead of her, the copse hushed as the underbrush stilled just short of a lumbering Vanta black shadow that blotted out the greenery behind it. It was the bear, and she had a cub. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. What a great, like, visceral sort of world, right? It really can feel being in the woods there. Really fantastic. And I feel like now you just have to teach Stephen King concision and we'll be all set, right? Great. Our next world builder tonight is Helen Murray.
Okay, hi everyone. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I want to start off by saying that I'm just really thrilled to be here. Just some context for the following story. I recently got out of the military and I started writing in order to help process some of those events. If you've never used fiction writing as therapy, I highly recommend it. This is the very beginning of a fantasy novel I've been writing. It's a coming of age story about a young woman named Brynhild in the wake of a terrible tragedy. Though I submitted the epilogue and the first chapter, for the sake of time, I'm just going to read the epilogue. Okay. Epilogue. The storm. How do I describe the storm that changed everything? If I'm able to, I try to peel back the horror, the despair, the atrocity of it all, and I'm left with a reality untarnished by the human lens. Rain fell from the sky. Water churned on the ground. Shacks were swept away. Trees hit houses, people, and earth. And the next day, before noon, the rain stopped. But then I'm left with questions. If that's all it was, laid out simply, why am I left with flashes of dread that pull sweat from my skin and blood from my face? If that's all that happened, then why does the sight of a cloudy sky turn my hands numb? If that's all that happened, rain fell from the sky, then why do the memories of water ripping at my legs claw at me in my dreams? And why do I remember the way my throat burned as I screamed for help, but I don't remember Mom's death? Sometimes, in the moments immediately after waking up, I remember her voice, too soft beneath the pelting downpour. Don't be scared, she'd said. It's just a storm. Thank you all so much. It was a pleasure.
Oh, thank you, Helen. I love that repetition there in the middle of that, right? And just driving that home and that trying to apply like logic to a thing that defies logic is so attractive. Our next presenter is Fernando Ordaz.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me or see me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, cool. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad I was chosen. I will say that I do have to put my video off because I have to put the screen close to my face so I can read. I will say that this was an assignment that was given to me for a English 394 course, and it was a limit of 750 word count, and it is exactly 750 words. I was also in the cruiser Stevie King course as someone else was in here, and that's how I found out about this world building. So I'm glad that we were all given this opportunity to be here. All right, cool. So what I'm about to read is labeled the jug. So sitting on her sectional couch with her dog Radar nestled to her side, Anna types away on her laptop, deleting and replacing words. She is overwhelmed by the amount of homework that she has allowed herself to push further and further back. She sighs, annoyed. Why is this prompt so hard to figure out? She looks over to Radar, kisses him, and then looks out the large bay window which overlooks the backyard, knowing that her mind isn't focused on her work. Her girlfriend, Sarah, has been so distant lately. The shifts that she claims to be working have been ludicrous, and yet she still complains about money. Yesterday, Anna finally worked up the courage to confront Sarah on it, sparking their worst argument to date. Sarah had given up and said that maybe she should stay somewhere else for the night, and Anna agreed. Why did I agree? That immediate knowledge of knowing where to stay the night is what's buzzing in Anna's mind the most. Sarah was happy to leave. Where did she go? Her family doesn't live close, and her friends are unreliable. Anna goes to the Notes app on her phone, workshopping a message to send. The Notes app is better because, with her luck, Sarah will see the dots pop up, indicating that she's typing. All she wants is for Sarah to come home so everything can be better, cuddle, and watch crappy movies. But things have changed. There's a sensation that something is going on, and she can't just allow her to come home as if she can get away with whatever she wants. She pushes the laptop off of herself and hops off the couch, wanting to go for a run and clear her mind. A run, she thinks to herself. No, this is going to be a sprint. While lacing up the green running shoes, the familiar ping of her message alert sounds off. She looks at her phone and immediately covers the front camera so that it doesn't unlock, allowing the contents of the message to display on her screen. While the phone is locked, the message icon simply says iMessage. Just reading the name sends her body into a confusing rage. The odd sensation of the hair on her body beginning to raise hits, and her heart beats faster and faster. Anna heads out and begins to run with no idea how many miles she will do. All she wants is to feel free. The first mile comes up without her even realizing. She goes into another dimension, not feeling her legs assault the asphalt. There's a ping on her watch showing her the details of the first mile, snapping the mental paralysis. She is amazed to see her pace is electric. Smiling and continuing her cadence without missing a beat, she looks up at the road again. It's too late. The driver of the red Mercedes gave her no chance, ignoring the stop message on the sign. The car zoomed through, going 20 miles per hour over the limit. The car comes to a screeching halt after a loud thud. Their stop was just as brief as it would have been at the sign that they had seen. The driver pressed the gas and drove off without a second glance. Anna laid on the pavement, struggling to catch her breath. She knows that this could be it, and it frightens her. It wasn't death that was frightening her the most, but her thoughts. If these are going to be my last thoughts, then I better remember the good ones. Like the carnival last year when Sarah won the humongous teddy bear for her, to which they joke about where to store the damn thing. The memories were coming in fast, and the tears came just as quick. Then she remembers the message that Sarah had recently sent. Attempting to move her arms and failing, the pain was fierce. And looking down at the confusing way her hips were turned backwards was awful. She tried to speak. A man had seen the incident happen and immediately called 911. He ran over to Anna and made it to her within 15 seconds after the car had pummeled her. As soon as he reaches her, he hears a gurgle sound come out of her. Seeing the way her twisted body almost makes him puke. She passed away moments later, and the man thinks to himself, did she say nothing? That's it, folks. I'm so glad I got to share this with y'all. Thanks for being out again. I hope to, or I can't wait to hear what else is out here.
Thank you so much, Fernando. I actually feel like you shutting your camera off made that scarier, right? There's like a weird dread that came to you on a cell phone video and then disappeared to say a bunch of scary stuff to us. It's great. We're down to our last reader of the night. Our final world builder is Jacob Stahl.
Hi, I'm Jake Stahl, and this is The Adventures of Bag the Wise. Well, the borderline geriatric receptionist said while eyeing every inch of Bag the Wise, "You aren't nearly as tall as I expected." Kneeling so he could make eye contact with the woman at the front desk, Bag chuckled and said, "It would have been a disaster if I was any taller, huh?" With that breathy old person cadence one can only develop after unironically enjoying bingo night, the receptionist asked, "I see on your application that you're a giant, is that right?" "Half giant," Bag answered quickly before adding, "You wouldn't believe how difficult it is to fill out such a small application when your hands are 2 times the size of the paper." With a smile that put each and every jagged yellow tooth on display, Bag said, "So, from the bottom of my heart, I apologize if there were any grammatical errors." The receptionist, able to see the leftovers from lunch in his mangled maw, took one short step back before saying, "No need to do anything you'd regret, Bag the Wise." Bag put his hand over his mouth and let out a nervous laugh that echoed throughout the rest of the castle. Giving his best attempt at a whisper, Bag lowered his hand from his mouth and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to alarm you." The receptionist stood unmoving behind her desk. Her cloudy cataractous eyes grew ever so slightly wider as she stared at Bag the Wise over the reading glasses that defied the laws of physics and how they somehow clung to her nose. After stewing in the tension for what felt like an eon, the receptionist gave up the fight and accepted defeat in the most uncomfortable game of chicken ever played when she began searching around her desk, saying, "Just a moment, Mr. the Wise. I need to find your course schedule." And then you bat my hair. Excuse me, I meant to say on your way. Bag knelt before the receptionist's desk for a minute or two longer before the receptionist finally found his schedule. After snatching it from her shaky hand, Bag burst to his feet, accidentally slamming his head into the ceiling, knocking a few tiles off of the mosaic that adorned the roof. Blushing, Bag craned his neck and began an awkward speed shuffle out of the small admissions office, shouting over his shoulder, "Thank you for all your help, ma'am." After the door shut behind Bag the Wise, the poor elderly receptionist plopped into her chair and let out a long sigh. She removed the glasses from her nose and rubbed her palms against her eyes. She could feel the relief surging through her swollen varicose veins before the door slammed open again. Defeated, she removed her hands from her eyes, swallowed hard, and tried to remember the breathing techniques that her great-great-great-great-granddaughter Paisley had taught her during their family reunion to the Mushroom River before dealing with whatever the fuck Bag the Wise needed now. "Sorry about your door, ma'am. They're much lighter here than they are back home," Bag said, holding the door in one arm, having accidentally ripped it from its hinges. "I came back because I believe there's been a mistake with my schedule. It says warrior training, but you see, I am a wizard." Bag the Wise projected with a puffed up chest and pride plastered on his face. "What?" the receptionist asked, side-eyeing Bag. "You are a wizard?" "I've got a wand and everything. You want to see?" Bag asked, flashing his monstrosity of a smile, not giving the receptionist a chance to respond. Bag shuffled out of the admissions office and retrieved his wand from his pack in the hallway. When Bag squeezed back into the admissions office, the receptionist was at a loss for words. After staring at the half giant for a few moments and lifting her jaw from the floor, she said, "Bag, that's a fucking tree branch." Bag's smile melted off of his face as flakes of crimson crept into his otherwise light green complexion, while muttering unintelligible apologies under his breath and lowering the tree branch, a pigeon shot from the tip and started flying around the room in a state of complete hysteria. With the admissions office in a state of bedlam, the receptionist yelped, "Okay, okay, you're a wizard," while swatting at the pigeon with a folder that was lying on her desk. Promptly leaning over the desk, Bag carefully reached out his giant green hands toward the bird and gently said, "Come here, little buddy." After a moment of trepidation, the bird hopped into his palm. His massive hands still outstretched, now holding the bird. Bag turned his big green face to the receptionist. Trying to be polite, he ignorantly flashed his terrifying toothy grin before asking, "Can I have my schedule now, ma'am?"
Thank you so much, Jake. It's nice to see Bag the Giant again. I always like that character. I actually think one of the hardest things to do in like a fantasy or science fiction space is like be funny. It's just like really challenging to write fantasy humor, and I think it's really great. Did Michelle Conde ever? Nope. Okay, so we have heard from everybody tonight. I just want to say before we clap for everybody again, what a real pleasure it was to get to hear all of your different work and to hear from each other and those of us who joined us online. What a wide spread of work and all this interesting imagination and invention that's happening here is really a pleasure and exactly what I needed tonight for my Wednesday night. So thank you all so much. Let's give a big round of applause to our readers for tonight. Thanks again to everybody who joined us online. Those of you in person, feel free to, of course, read our readers in person and tell them what you thought of their work. There are more snacks and beverages and stuff, so please have something on your way out. Thank you again to Piper for hosting us. Thank you all and have a good night. Thank you.